Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. I'm your host for this session. I'm Sean.
And I'm Kevin.
And together we're going to talk about a unique problem that you might be having in your sales process and your sales world. This 15 minutes is designed for salespeople, sales managers, and CEOs of the company that are trying to increase their revenue and trying to be more productive in your sales processes. So let's get started.
You know, Kevin, I'm an empty nester now, but I can still remember the days when my three children, who I love desperately, were in our house and they were just a mess. There was stuff everywhere. My kids were very, very engaged in sports. We had basketball shoes and bags and balls and cheerleading stuff all over the place. And when you walked into their room, you swear we didn't have an ounce of carpet on that floor at all because you just couldn't see the floor. And there was always that stench. And you're like, what is that smell? Kevin, I know your kids are a little younger than my kids are. Do you live that life today?
I live that life every moment of every day, currently just transitioning from baseball to soccer to summer. That happened in my life. You hit the nail on the head. And I'm an athlete too. I still get out and run, so I'm somewhat of a mess as well. I totally get it. But hey, aren't we talking about sales management here?
We are talking about sales management, Kevin, and that mess everywhere and the messy room and stuff is a disarray. It was causing me problems when my kids lived here. And like I said, I love my kids desperately. And just like you love your kids desperately. But I may not love my salespeople as much. And they're a little bit of a mess. And let's talk about the mess that they call their pipeline.
Now we're going to get in people's crawl, I can already tell. And there's something that stinks in a pipeline. Everybody smells it. I like to think that everybody has the best of intentions when it comes to keeping a pipeline clean and a CRM clean. But invariably, hey, we're at the busy time of year. The sun is shining. People are making hay in the sunshine. Pipelines this time of year can be a mess.
How do we check to see what is a good pipeline? What has been well kept up? I'm going to start with one example, and I know there's many that we can dig into. In fact, we'd be lucky if we finish this thing in 15 minutes. But the thing that I think is amazing is the number of times a deal slips from 1 month to the next month to the next month. It's almost like the sales rep just changed the number of the month to a different month. It's going to close. It's going to close on June 15th, and then it's going to close on July 15th, and then it's going to close on August 15th. And then finally they get frustrated and they say, okay, now it's not really going to close until October 15th. Do you ever have that problem? And what do you think that the reasons are behind that problem, Kevin?
The answer is yes. And for all of you people in sales leadership or business ownership that are listening right now, you too have experienced this. You may be experiencing this right now. Don't distress. There's a quick way, a fast way out that doesn't involve you becoming a data administrator perpetually. Like nobody wants to be a data administrator. There is no need to have that as a salesperson just to push dates out. That's what I'm talking about. Data cleanliness is really important. But when I've had this problem in the past, it has been imperative that we press the pause button on data and date changes. It's really important that we go back to the fundamentals and do what we know we're supposed to do to get our pipeline back in order.
Totally agree. The fundamentals of where are you with the customer in their evaluation process and their buying process? Are you actually dealing with a customer that is buying, or are you dealing with a customer or prospect that is simply exploring the idea? And that's okay to be so early in the buying process that the customer is exploring the idea. That's actually really good. That means you're probably going to be ahead of the buying process. You're ahead of your competition. You're teaching the customer about the problem. You're building the problem, hopefully to make it a bigger problem. But it doesn't mean that it's ready for them to buy. They are not showing signs of buying. They are showing signs of curiosity. And curiosity is good. We need to explore that, but we don't need to put it on the pipeline yet. Or actually, we should put it in the pipeline at the early portion of the pipeline. Let's just say that we're not going to commit. Just because a customer is talking to you doesn't mean a customer is buying.
Absolutely. Let's break that down. Let's have a terminology discussion. For all you sales leaders out there, or if you're a salesperson and you're trying to lead up in your organization, let's agree that we need a common language. Sean, I'm sure you've had this experience. Somebody calls a lead the same thing as a prospect, the same thing as a suspect. Well, I'm here to say that war against that labeling. I say that a lead is a piece of data. A lead is a name, a phone number, an email address, or something to be nurtured. A prospect is someone who's active in our sales discussion. We are mapping the buyer journey. We're understanding how they are trying to solve a problem, how we are trying to help them solve a problem. That is a prospect. So we can arrive and say that tomorrow, when we come into the CRM, every lead going forward is just a data point. Every prospect we have had a conversation, we're in the process of qualifying or scoping. I am a firm believer that if you are waking up this morning or listening this afternoon or up at midnight listening to this podcast, you may have a problem in your pipeline and you need to start with common language. Common language will help untangle any mess that you have. Think about that at any stage of your life. It doesn't have to be sales. It could be your personal life. It could be in operations. It can be delivery or quality. If you have a problem, if you will start with communication, you will make a large difference fast. What does that look like? For all of your open pipeline opportunities, if you don't have an active sales conversation that is qualified, i.e., you've reached out and reached out and reached out, but nobody's called you back, that's still a lead. If that's in your active pipeline, you need to move that deal either to the leads pipeline, a marketing pipeline, or back to the very first stage as an unqualified lead. Whether or not they fit your ideal client profile, they're not a prospect yet because they're not talking to us.
And then once that customer is engaged, and I like to say, does the prospect know they are buying something? It's a great qualifying question that I ask my sales team all the time. They're talking about this deal, they're talking about this thing that's going to happen, this opportunity is going to close. And I just say, if I called the customer right now and I said, hey, Joe, are you going to buy X in some amount of time in the future? Maybe not from me, maybe from somebody else, but you're going to solve this problem by making an acquisition of a product. Do you agree that's going to happen? When I challenge salespeople on that, and if they say no to that, the customer doesn't know that they are buying, then that's still a very early prospect, maybe still a lead. They're probably a prospect because they are talking to us at least. They're probably past that lead status, but they're not very far along in the project. And you have a hard time saying that they're going to close anytime soon because they don't know that they're buying. It's only when a customer knows that he's buying that you should start saying, well, now let's figure out the date of that purchase. We need to figure that out. I want to reinforce though, does the prospect know that they are buying and therefore it's something that's going to be in a late stage of that pipeline?
The thing that we're coming back to, and the thing we open with here, is that we've got potentially a sales mess. We've got, let's say we're a small to medium sized business and we've got big price tags, so we're B2B, and these high value purchases, we may wake up tomorrow, look at your CRM and say, I have 50 open opportunities right now for 1 to 2 salespeople. In actuality, probably some of the behaviors you see as a sales leader are the deals keep pushing. Or if you're a salesperson, hey, I can't get that prospect to call me back. Let's back up the train a little bit and take an intellectually honest approach. You've heard me say that before. An intellectually honest approach to whatever qualifying method you're using, whether it's an older one like BANT, a MedPick, any of the qualifying metrics. If you don't know why the customer is buying, what problem they're solving, if you can't, in a sales meeting, think about with you and your sales leader, or you as a sales leader with your sales team, can't say, this is the problem that they're solving, and this is the value of that problem if they do nothing. Here's the business impact. We need to stop trying to sell and close and realize that we skipped a step here. If we could go back and say to all of these open deals, I know the pain, I know the value of that pain, and I know the cost of doing nothing, now we've got a prospect. For everyone else, we've got to go back and backfill, close off a hatch. If you're using the Sandler method, we have to go back and find that pain funnel, or go back and find the mid-pick, the decision process, and the buyer and the metrics. We have to stop, which is tough for salespeople to do. What's another case? If you're a sales leader, ask your salesperson about their deal, their pipeline review. Ask them who is going to sign the agreement, and are you talking to them? That is probably the telltale number one issue that I work when I'm working with salespeople. Hey, who's going to sign this? Oh, I'm working with this director of. Okay, the directors oftentimes don't have the ability to move a budget around. If you can't take X number of thousands of dollars from one budget line and move it to another, it's really hard to say, hey, this is really in their purview or their ability to sign. You don't have to go back and tell somebody that you're not going to talk to them anymore because they don't have budget authority, but you need to be creative in your sales process or your sales leadership process to the point to draw out that conversation. And here's where some real sales coaching can begin.
I'm going to build on a couple things you talked about there. On that economic buyer conversation that you're kind of leading to, which, by the way, is the E in MedPick, if you're a MedPick person like myself, that economic buyer has to have the ability to fully control a budget. In other words, I have to be able to add more money to the budget. Let's just say I'm an economic buyer, I'm in charge of a department. And because we're targeting this at sales, let's just say we're talking to a bunch of chief revenue officers that are out there. And that chief revenue officer at the beginning of the year, that VP of sales at the beginning of the year, he is given a budget that has a certain number of people that he has to employ, certain number of sales tools that he has to buy and keep maintain. He has to take care of some expenses, whatever the case may be. Maybe he has different types of salespeople. Now, he might find a sales tool that makes it much more effective for salespeople to operate. He can say, that means I don't need to hire as many salespeople because I have this brand new sales tool. He can rearrange his budget at his discretion. That is an economic buyer kind of conversation. It is not, however, a conversation that a director typically can make. Most of the time, directors buy things that are in budget. Vice presidents or people with a C in their title buy things that are in budget as well as outside of budget. They can rearrange things, they can work on things, which is typically why a sales manager or sales leader will say, how high are you in the organization? It's a great significant thing to say that we have the ability to rearrange the budget, we have the true economic buyer. I just wanted to lean into that a little bit, make that example a little bit. Last thing I'm going to say before I turn over to you, Kevin, don't just worry about pain, worry about goals. Companies have lots of pains. They just live with lots of little things that are wrong every day, and most of them are nitpicky little things, and they really aren't things that you're going to spend money trying to solve. Just think about your own company, Mr. Listener, Mrs. Listener. Just think about your own company, all the things that you have to put up with on a regular basis that you just simply aren't going to get solved because it just doesn't make sense to solve that problem. We're not going to spend more resources to solve it. However, there's certain things that are just big and audacious, and we've decided we're going to fix that problem. That's a goal. The lack of achieving a goal is a big pain. You want to try to focus your product and sales efforts going after that.
Let's give the listening audience something actionable. If you have a leads and prospects mix in your pipeline, in your CRM, you should have the ability to create an additional pipeline. I use this tool a lot with all of my customers. I create a nurture pipeline and a sales pipeline. You may have the need in your business to have pipelines by product line, but in large part, if you're trying to untangle an existing mess, just start with a nurture pipeline and a sales pipeline. That will give you something actionable that you can apply to your business tomorrow or next week that should make a difference in how you run your sales meetings. And that's a wrap. Thanks again for joining Kevin and Sean on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Tune in every Tuesday, or when our podcast drops every Tuesday at 4:30, wherever you consume your podcast. And don't miss our monthly CEO workshop where we unpack some of the big CEO questions facing your business. Until next time, we're looking forward to seeing you. Happy selling.